Hello, everyone.
Howdy.
And welcome back to the Gen Free podcast. May I have a round of applause, please? You won't be able to hear the applause, but you can clap too. There we go. Yay! That was short.
I did kind of hear it.
You did kind of hear it? Yeah, his
it's
headphones
just
are
my
loud.
headphones are loud, so I can get the full audio experience, especially when Ayana screams into the microphone and blasts my ears off.
It's an accident. I don't mean to. I
had to turn your microphone down to -8 today while I was editing.
That bad?
Yeah.
I'm a loud person. I probably shouldn't have a mic. This is a student-led podcast focused on discovering God's freedom in our everyday lives. As always, it's Ayana Cruz.
My name is Steve Robertson. I'm the co-host of the Gen Free podcast, and I'm also the editor of the Gen Free podcast.
He does a lot for this. I know you go through hell and back listening to my voice constantly in your ear 24/7.
So my mom sometimes will be in the kitchen and she'll be able to hear your voice from my computer, and she's like,
of
she
course,
gets thrown off about whether I'm on the phone with you or editing a podcast.
It'd be like that.
Yeah.
But we have a very, 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 very special guest here with us today. He is an author, a speaker, a business leader. He does it all around. He has a hyperfixation with our generation, I feel. True. I wonder why. It's so interesting. But we'll get into that.
But he's a Liverpool fan.
Whose phone was that? Was that mine? No, mine is right on my lap. That threw me off.
Yeah,
Steve Robertson!
Thank you.
Yay!
No relation, by the way.
No relation. Definitely not.
No relation.
What if you guys were related, like deep down?
I made a joke when you first came to our church and did like a guest as a guest speaker. I was like, that guy's my uncle. Just messing with people.
People believe you?
I think one of the younger kids believed me, but but I didn't get it.
Wait, Sawyer, so you're South African?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, imagine.
And we're related to the Robertsons down south that do the duck calls.
Duck Dynasty.
Come on. Can you see I'm busy growing a beard to match them?
Oh, I shaved before this.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know who we're talking about.
You don't know who Duck Dynasty is?
I've heard of them, but I can't say.
Mr. Cy Robertson?
We all grew up differently.
Yes, we did.
I
convinced my third grade class that I was related to them. That was like when that show was actually airing, and I like got all of them, and then I don't think I ever told them the truth. But they probably figured it out.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have no beard. It explains a lot.
Well, I told you I shaved. So.
But I've seen, but your beard, I've never seen your beard to that capacity.
Well, it's cut. Every time my beard.
Steve Robertson, guys.
Okay.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah.
How you feeling today?
Been a good day.
It has?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Productive day. Had a lot of really good conversations.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, none of which I'm allowed to share.
I mean, they'd be personal.
Working on
about him,
classified
that's why I didn't
business.
want to bring it up.
Classified business.
Classified business.
Sophisticated. There we go. That's better. Before we start, I do have a very random question for you. It's food related. I wrote a lot of these questions when I was hungry.
Oh.
Yeah. But it's something, I also heard this in a sermon, so like using the analogy of bruised fruit. Do you actually eat bruised fruit? If a fruit has a bruise on it, do you eat it?
Ooh. So are you going to judge me based on my answer? Because I don't want to be judged by you right now.
No, I don't. I want to say judgment. I just think about it.
I do not eat bruised fruit. You know why? I don't think there's anything wrong with bruised fruit. Mm-mm. But God's given us this eye, right? You know, when you go to a restaurant and the food is so beautifully laid out, there's a reason for that. It makes it so much more inviting. And so, like when something's bruised, not that I'm encouraging people to throw it away, but you asked me if I eat it. No.
Yeah, it's like you don't go out of your way looking for bruised fruit.
That's why you get a dog that eats everything.
Yeah, it's true.
My dog actually doesn't.
Ah.
My dog is picky.
Picky eating dog. That's a problem.
Dog, that is a problem.
It is a problem. It really is. But he also has a lot of allergies for some reason, like food allergies wise. And it's so weird.
One thing my dogs won't eat, they won't eat pretzels. Like they'll put it in their mouth and like chew it, but then they just spit it out. Like they won't eat them. It's weird.
What's really weird is that you're surprised by that.
Well, it's because they eat most other things.
I fed my dog so many things, and you know the one thing my dog doesn't eat is pretzels, people.
Yes.
It's weird. Like
no, that is weird. Or like my dog, he just develops a certain palate over time. He doesn't eat carrots anymore. He doesn't eat carrots. He won't eat bananas anymore.
Neither do I.
you're not a dog. You're not a dog.
Yeah, I know.
You're not Enoch. I
Her
gotta show
dog's
you a
name's
picture.
Enoch.
His name's Enoch. He's big. He's like almost 100 pounds.
We'll put a picture up.
Yeah, we'll put a picture up of Enoch, the cute ones where he looks like a puppy. He's a American bully, so he's huge, but he acts like a baby, and he won't eat. If it's bruised, he won't eat it.
Whoa, you see?
Oh.
This
So I'm
dog
not
is
the only one.
sophisticated.
He's holding himself to a higher standard.
Yeah, higher standard than me. If it's bruised, I'll still eat it.
But God doesn't throw away everything that's bruised. If that's where the sermon went. I get that.
Yeah, but you do.
Just fruit.
Just fruit.
Not bruised humans, just bruised fruit.
Well, bruises on human can be healed. You can't really.
Come on.
I've never seen fruit get healed.
I have one from the bottom of a cleat the other day.
Where?
Right there.
You were playing soccer the other day?
No, we were playing football and Chris hit me.
Oh, toxic. Let me shut up. Let me not. You ready to dive into this?
Well, hang on. Before we get into this episode, only 8% of y'all are actually subscribed. So I'm talking to that other 92%. And I'm telling you, you should subscribe right now before we get into this amazing podcast right now. And hit that bell icon so you can get updated whenever we have a new upload or a gen-free podcast or even our set-free testimonies for whenever we're sharing the gospel.
Period. You ate that.
I eat.
You ate that. Devoured. No crumbs.
No crumbs.
No crumbs left.
No bruises.
All off on the top of your head.
Yep. Well,
Period.
I was thinking about that today when we were when I was editing. I was like, man, I was either going to record myself doing it and insert it into the video, or I was just going to start doing it from today. So I chose to just do it today.
No, I appreciate that.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah,
we should do a video for that. You should do it.
I
should
love
endorse
you
us.
two. You guys got a good thing going on here. This is
Oh,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the host chemistry.
Yeah,
the
we
very
do-
platonic
we do our
host
best.
chemistry.
Oh, we're best friends.
Oh yeah, we're best friends. I've
So.
never been best friends with a white guy before, so interesting. Let me shut up.
Whatever.
Let me shut up.
I don't care.
Let me shut
All
up.
right, let's get started.
Yeah, let's get it started. Do you know what you're here to talk about today?
Whatever you ask me.
That's
Nothing
a good point.
pre-planned.
That is a good answer.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if you knew.
Well, Holy Spirit did tell me a few things. You're going to ask me how I got this amazing physique.
Oh my gosh.
And I was going to say, like, I work out a ton. Can you tell?
No.
You got the wrong eyes on, darling. You're looking through the wrong lens.
Only the Lord can give somebody this physique.
Or the eyes to see it.
I mean, that's all I can give you is a thumbs up.
Thank you.
I have never stared at your physique. You are taller than I thought, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you were standing, I was like, oh, he is taller than I thought.
I think. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. How tall are you? Wait,
I'm about this tall.
what does that mean?
I'm 6'10".
I'm
You're not.
I'm
She almost believed me.
6 and a quarter. 6 foot and a quarter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that explains it.
Yeah,
Give me that quarter, girl.
I think I barely.
That quarter. You
I-
get that.
I-
You get that point. That's what 0.25.
At least.
6.25 feet tall.
Yeah.
I'm 5'1".
I'm 5'11" on a bad day. I crack 6 foot regularly.
Crack 6 foot for
Oh, I
regularly.
crack 6 foot regularly.
It's those inserts that get him to 6 foot.
Yeah, it's
It's
just
the
a
extra
tiny
thing.
bit. Tiny bit.
I wish I was taller. But anyways, we are talking about Gen Z and the workforce. Fascinating topic because I did some statistics searching. And I thought a lot of more of us were working than we were, I will say.
Even those that are working aren't really.
Yeah, but like,
That's just a joke, okay? Go on.
I'm not gonna-
Lighten up over here.
no, I was surprised because everyone I know works. So to see like certain like statistics, I was like, oh, like jump scare. But yeah, let's get into this. I'm gonna read some of them off because I remember wording them much differently, and I'm wording them in my head. So let's start off with what piqued your interest in studying this generation.
Again, judging me, okay? So don't.
Am I judging
No,
you?
no,
I just asked.
I'm prefacing it because I know my answer. I have no interest in Gen Z other than financial.
Mm.
True word, right?
Huh.
So I run a business that sees thousands and thousands and thousands of kids from all over the world every summer. And that's where it began. I recognized 15 years ago that there was something that had shifted in the generations from millennials to Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized that if I don't study them, I won't know how to sell, program to my audience. And so it was just part of being a good business person and stewarding a business well. Started to research them and recognize that there were some things that were really, really different about this generation. And as a result of all that time, effort, and energy in studying, we were very successful as a business. So it started with financial interest and being successful in a business. But any of you seen Ender's Game, the movie?
I've heard about it. I haven't watched it.
Come on, Ender's Game.
Yeah, and there's
I don't know which
book.
camera.
I haven't read it.
Watch Ender's Game. So I'm not going to spoil it, but I guess I am. Spoiler alert. So if you're going to watch it, don't listen to this part. There's a point in the story where Ender comes down to Earth because he's fighting against aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And he says to his sister, who he really loves, he says to her that at the point where you really understand your enemy well enough to defeat them, you actually love them.
Mm.
Come on, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So the point I was making was not that I wanted to defeat Gen Z, but the more you study them and understand them, globally speaking, broadly speaking, because everybody's an individual, right? The more like we just fell in love with them, and it was my business, and it is my business, and the next generation is always a generation that's so full of energy and excitement, and they hold the keys of tomorrow in their hands. So what not to love about them?
Oh, you love us now.
I love you guys.
First
now.
it was about money, but now you love us.
I love you and money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, money is needed. What is the business, may I ask?
Yeah, so a number of things, but primarily, so I'm in a number of businesses. The one I'm talking about is that we run summer programs at a whole lot of different universities and private schools and with some professional sports teams, not that one.
Oh my gosh.
United.
We did run a program with Arsenal, but
Nice.
And so we would see, 40,000 kids a summer from more than 140 countries,
Wow.
and we would have about 2,000 seasonal staff every year. So it was a business that had a lot of moving parts, and so they would come to all the different universities and do all these different programs, everything from fashion to photography to nursing to medicine to music to business to tennis to golf, all different programs,
Wow.
all sorts of things.
Tennis.
Yes.
Tennis is fun.
I mean, tennis is fun, but I just haven't, I don't know. I don't know people who play tennis.
You know me,
Yeah.
You play tennis?
I play tennis.
darling. I was a tennis professional.
I didn't know this. Wait.
Where do you think these legs come from? Come on.
Are those tennis legs?
Yes.
I only know one tennis player, and that's Serena Williams. Well, now I know two.
Venus.
Oh yeah, Venus. So 3 now.
And my dad played. Well, Pastor Adam and Brian met playing tennis.
They did?
Yes.
If you can call it that.
Oh.
I'm just throwing a gauntlet out there. I've never seen them play, but I can imagine.
Are you challenging?
That
Are
I
you
would watch.
challenging
That would
the-
be pretty funny.
I think if you guys have any influence at all, and you could arrange that little match, and the loser would wash the winner's car by hand, not to out a car, that would make it fun, right? And
Yeah.
you never know.
Wait, we could live stream
That would be
this.
hilarious.
Could you live stream? That's it.
Could live
And you could
stream
make
this.
sure that Adam and Brian wear shorty shorts, those tennis shorts.
Okay.
That would be great. And they'd have to wear a headband. And
And the
Come on, the
wristbands.
Are you challenging them?
an official challenge has been made.
Declare it to the camera.
Adam, Brian, word on the street is you guys know how to play tennis. It is to be seen, not to be heard. And this is a challenge. The loser of a game has to wash the winner's car by hand. I think that's a fair challenge.
That is a fair
I
challenge.
would
Challenge
have
has
to
been
wash
made.
2 cars or 2. In fact, I would play.
With your physique.
I would play. Thank you. I'm hoping you can bring that up a couple of
Oh,
times.
yeah.
I, in fact, will challenge the 2 of you together against me And you can have the alleys on my side, so doubles court. And if you guys lose, 2 of you wash my car, and if I lose, then I wash both of your cars. That's a good
Sounds
deal.
fair to me.
It is a good deal.
No shenanigans.
It's
No
official.
shenanigans.
Come on.
They have 24 hours to respond.
Yeah, and if they don't, I feel like there should be some shaming involved.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make them wear a tennis shirt.
Or skirt.
True.
I do have a few of those. I don't think they could fit in it, but I do have a few of those. Wow, it's official. I didn't think we'd get this.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was not on my bingo card for today. But
You know who also played tennis?
Who?
My dad.
Rusty.
Yeah, he's played a lot of sports. He played soccer, baseball, football, and tennis. And he plays golf.
How do you even play? Anyways, we gotta. Let me know. I'm gonna ask you how to play tennis afterwards because I did not know. So you
Tennis
are
is
an
fun.
author, a business leader, a speaker, and a tennis player, a tennis professional.
Correct. And there's some more.
There's
also
more.
happen to be a bodybuilder.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell?
No,
The physique,
absolutely not. The physique.
The physique goes crazy.
The tennis physique. In studying Gen Z, though, back to the subject, in studying us, for financial reasons, I'm not judging you, I just have to keep saying that, for financial reasons, because I find it so funny. But what characteristics did you find, either that's alarming, might be concerning, might not be concerning, might be a good thing? What did you find in our generation as a whole?
Well, let's begin with this. It's not just me studying your generation. Every business is studying your generation.
Yeah.
Every business, that's why they have data. That's why they track what you do, when you do it, how you do it, so that they know how to sell things to you. So millennials were the first generation where there was an incredible amount of data. Gen Z were the second generation where there's a lot of data, and Alpha is going to be a lot of data. And so what did we figure out? So let me just say this. The age of 28 to the age of about 12 is Gen Z, more or less. Do you know that 52% of the world's population is under the age of 30?
That's
Know that?
insane.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So 12 and under are alpha generations. So you've got that between about 12 and 28, which is Gen Z. So what did we find out that was alarming or surprising? The first thing I think that most people don't get is that Gen Z are the first generation that is wired fundamentally different to any generation we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's not just that they behave differently, their makeup, not literally their DNA, but their wiring is different to any generation we've ever seen. You see, every generation that's come before has kind of started through their teenagers' years to be going through a phase, right? Teenagers do, right? And then after that phase, they become more and more like the generation that preceded them. But Gen Z is the first generation in recorded human history. And when I say recorded, we're talking about, probably 150 years, that is wired nothing like the previous generation that came before them. And so a couple of ways you see that is that there are, and there's a reason for that. It's not just they woke up one day and decided we wanted to be different, right?
Yeah.
There's this thing called the perfect storm that has caused them to be different. So there are 4 things in the perfect storm. I won't explain them unless we dig into it. It's technology, it's world news, it's social media, and it's parenting and leadership. So those 4 things are so different in Gen Z's life that they've become different humans, right?
Wow.
So an analogy is that if you take blue paint and you add yellow paint to it, you get green paint.
Green.
So blue is all the generations from millennial and older. Yellow is that perfect storm I briefly explained to you. So you pour that yellow perfect storm all over the world, and slowly the world starts to turn green. So Gen Z and Alpha have only ever lived at a time where the world is green. Their world has only ever been green. The blue people, their world is slowly turning green, and they don't really recognize that yet. So the reason I'm telling you that analogy is this. There are 4 muscles that are really weak in the green people, Gen Z and Alpha generation. And those 4 muscles are weak in that generation or those generations because the green world doesn't really require them to be used a lot.
Okay.
Which means the blue people are slowly but surely getting weak in those areas too. But these 4 areas are probably one of the most important areas if you want to future-proof yourself in terms of business and who you're going to be and where you're going to be. So do you want to guess what they are?
Communication.
Yes.
You want to try the other one?
The other three.
Yeah, the other three.
So they lack in communication. I don't know, social skills of some sort?
So yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
It's not one of these four.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That social skill falls a little bit under communication.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Me going into communications, not knowing this is crazy. I don't know. I can't think
Problem solving,
of
communication, perseverance.
You did a sermon on this. I remember this now.
About time you listened to my sermon.
Well,
wow.
And gratitude.
Gratitude.
Shocking.
I'm very
so much
thankful
so,
for you, Steve.
Thank you for listening to my last sermon where I mentioned these athletic tennis legs and
Oh,
you
yeah.
never watched it, so otherwise you would have known.
I don't just stare at people's legs. Just
was
as
in the
when I
You were
was
looking at mine. She was talking about my calves the other day.
because he walked and they jiggled. I noticed that. Anyways.
So those are four areas that this generation is really weak. And gratitude, is a big deal, and it's a big part of this generation.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised that that's our weak area.
Well, it's four of them.
Yeah, well, four of a list, but the top four, I guess
But
you could say.
you know what's exciting about this generation is that they are the most creative, innovative, cause-driven generation we've ever encountered. And those things really matter. I mean, they really, really matter. And I guess I do a lot of work with corporations. I work with a lot of businesses, helping them figure out what their leadership model needs to look like. And right now, that transition of looking at a Gen Z in the workforce and saying they're lazy, they don't know what they're doing, they don't have commitment, they don't have, all the things that blue people would like to see in the workforce. When the blue people start to lead them differently, all of a sudden they start to see Gen Z shine. And so it's just a case of understanding a generation differently, getting a different perspective. And that changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. If all the blue people died today,
oh my.
let's go there, right? Green people would be okay. They'd bump their heads, they'd have to figure out a lot of stuff, but they're that smart, they're that innovative and creative. And if there's one thing that they need to recognize, is that if they just recognize the amazing legacy wisdom some of the blue people had, and they invited that into their lives, that would be like a power up in a major way. But yet they don't do that because we have access to all information, right
at our fingertips.
So you don't think that the older generation can tell you anything, plus they're boring, right? So like, why would we ask them? And so, those are a couple of areas that are very real in the Gen Z space. And if they're going to be future-proof, in other words, if they're going to be really impactful in the world tomorrow, recognizing that that's an area that they're weak, not because of anything in particular, is a really good place to begin, because then you can start to work in those areas.
Yeah.
Could we go into, I forget what you called it. It's not the four things you mentioned now, but the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Could we go into
Sure.
Could you break down the perfect storm for us?
Yeah, so in every generation, so we've had generations from the silent generation, the greatest generation, other way around, greatest silent, boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, Alpha Gen. That's where we are right now, right? And every one of those generations behaved different to the generation that came after them, but not to the degree we're seeing now. And so why did they behave so differently? Because something changed in their world that caused them to value things differently, communicate differently, behave differently. And so when we look at the perfect storm, the first one of those things is technology. And if you look at the speed of technology, the speed of call it the doubling time of technology, how quickly technology gets better and better. It's called the doubling time. There's a thing called Moore's Law. And so what Moore's Law says is, how long does it take a computer? In fact, it speaks about a computer chip. How long does it take a chip to double in power, in strength, right? That's what Moore's Law is. So when you look at the speed of doubling time or the time of doubling time, how short it is now. It gives you a glimpse at how significant technology is in our life. But now when you think about technology, you think about the things that we have going around us, and you don't really recognize how quickly technology is advancing. I mean, you see ChatGPT, and you see this, and you see that, and you see a couple of those things, but only when you put them together do you recognize the significant impact it has on how we live our lives on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why technology is a massive, massive thing. Just today, Best Buy announced that they are starting a division within Best Buy where they cater to smart homes. So everything smart is now available, and that's what they're going to be selling and pushing. And now we've had smart light bulbs and those things for a while, but it's
fridges.
Yeah. But now we're at a place where it's becoming so mainstream. So technology has changed the way we communicate. It changed what we value, how we travel, how we buy, how we sell. It's changed everything. So that's one of the four. The second thing is world news. This is a little bit more complex in the sense that in the 1970s, were any of you guys alive in the 1900s?
No.
Yeah, you knew the answer.
Of course I knew
Well, Michaela.
Come on, girl.
1 year she got 99. Wow.
So
old. No, let me.
In the 1970s, there was a study done, and it was called Mean World Syndrome. Okay, so what Mean World Syndrome is, it's a cognitive bias that represents or presents in an irrational fear of the world outside. So what happens was they studied a whole lot of people watching violent television in the 1970s. Right?
Oh, I've heard of this. Okay.
And the more violent television they watched, the more scared, irrationally scared they were of the world outside. So when you look at world news, you look at, we are plugged in 24/7. We get the news from across the globe in seconds.
Yeah.
And news only skews two ways. First way news skews is bad news, horror, or humor. Those are the only two forms of news that sell. Okay? And if you watch the news, you'll see it's all horror, right? Because they're trying to sell. And we are fascinated by watching Formula One or NASCAR, not because we think it's interesting, but we're waiting for the crash.
The crash.
Right? So that just gives you a sense. So if you look at where we are today from the 1970s, the amount of, let's call it, violent television that we have is 24/7.
Yeah.
Meaning that the irrational fear of the world has amplified and amplified and amplified. So now we have technology and we have Mean World Syndrome. The third one is social media. Social media has impacted and affected every component of our behavior. In fact, it still does that. And it's not good or bad, it just is. I mean, there's a whole lot of bad to it. It's good and bad, but it just is.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a form of communication, but it's also a cultural norm. And it, from a very, very young age, when a baby is now born and everyone's taking pictures of it and uploading it, and it's changing the way people behave on a daily basis. And that's the third thing. And then the fourth thing is parenting and leadership. And I say it like that because, again, I work with a lot of companies, and their leadership model and the parenting model where parents are completely hands-off because the previous set of parents were all hands-on. And so the pendulum swings, right? I'm never going to be like my parents. All they did was hands-on. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't breathe. I had to do everything they said. Now to the other side of like, I'm going to just let my child grow up free range and do whatever they want and find themselves. And you take that in a generation where they're growing up really fast and really slow. In other words, they are able to access everything in the world, but they're not mature enough to process it.
Yeah.
Plus they have freedom to do whatever they want. And you recognize now that those four things put together have created a human. My book's called Aliens Among Us, joking that you guys are aliens. Come on, it's funny.
Yeah, I'll take
funny,
it.
right?
No, it is funny.
But it's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be, well, it is, but it's supposed to be, if there was an alien sitting here, wouldn't you be really interested to figure out what makes them tick?
Yeah.
And I'm calling the older generations to take the time to figure out what makes Gen Z tick, because when you figure that out, you don't look at them as just being lazy or just because you understand them differently. So those four things are what make up the perfect storm. And that perfect storm is not stopping, which means the blue people have two options: slowly turn green or become obsolete.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty frightening thought for them, because you guys, as scared as I am to say this, looking at what he's wearing today, will determine what the world looks like today and tomorrow, right? Not me. And so it's a really perilous / cool / scary, enjoyable journey.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I think that what stood out to me was the third thing, which was how how we always like have our phones out and want to because me and my dad were watching Inter Miami the other day, which is the team that Messi plays for now in the MLS. And we were watching the point where he got to take a free kick. He put it over the bar. But when he was stepping up to take the free kick, every single person in the entire stadium had their phones out to record. Yeah. And no one can be in the moment anymore and actually experiencing something because they're too worried about having their phone out to capture it with whatever happens. And I think that we're losing touch with where we're at in the experiences that we get to share with others.
Completely.
And instead thinking about putting it online instead of sharing it with the people we're with currently. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that it doesn't scare me, but it's what sticks out whenever I see it.
Yeah. Phone is complicated because it puts something in our hands we've never had before. Mm-hmm. And it started off with millennials. They called the selfie generation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? Because this thing started as a toy, right? Mm-hmm. And so we would take photos of it with selfies as a toy, but now it's a tool. Yeah. So it's a part of everybody's life in a meaningful way. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. I predicted probably 8-10 years ago that there's going to come a time in all of our lives where we will pay to unplug. Mm. We were all paying to plug in, and we're still paying to plug in. There's going to become a time very soon where we will have to pay to unplug. And get out of this. And I think, part of the challenge with, let's call it, everybody at the stadium was not just Gen Z. Everybody was there to see Messi, who's a legend. Oh, absolutely. But here's the recognition, is that when you take everything I've already explained to you, you take the fact that this is a tool, part of everybody's life now, and then you take the communication component we spoke about a little bit, and you start to recognize that millennials versus Gen Z spend 40% less time in person with their friends than millennials did. Wow. Which means you don't practice this kind of relationship. You practice it 40% less than millennials, and that's why you're, generally speaking, a digital first generation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you'll connect via digital way before this, and that's why those muscles are weak. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, for you to be future-proof, not just you, for any of us to be future-proof tomorrow, those skills have got to be sharpened. And we use what we call an invisible curriculum to show people or grow those muscles for people. But that's part of the reason that it's even amplified, because you guys are not spending as much in person together time with friends as the previous generation did, which is significant.
Yeah.
That is insane to even think about.
Yeah.
40% is a big...
Significant.
It's a significant jump.
And then you think about, I don't know if you want to go into the brain science, but I can tell you about all the brain science, but if you see why there's such anxiety, depression, suicide, in part, it's because... we're not connecting as humans, and God's created us and wired us to do that, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when that's, even if you're an introvert and you can only take so much of certain people, right? Yeah. And then you need to get, that's okay, but you still need that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the brain science is really interesting. So there's neurochemicals that get released in your brain whenever you do anything. And so what happens with the phone or in the digital format is that it releases these neurotransmitters in your brain really quickly, and it gives you this fix, right? Mm-hmm. Things are good. Mm-hmm. But because it's digital, and because there is nothing tangible attached to it, it doesn't take long for your brain to recognize that it's a false, for want of a better term, high, because it's not a high, but it's a false release of chemicals. And that's where the major crash happens. And it's, at the end of the day, who am I? Why was I even created? What good am I to this world? Mm-hmm. And so that's been amplified because we don't have this time. Yeah. And even when we have this time, like at school, there's good things and bad things that happen in school, but you figure out, you learn how to navigate so many situations, social situations, good and bad in that way, which in a digital way, it's just very different. And so when people recognize it, then they can start to do something about it. But until you recognize it, it's really hard, right? So should a parent not give a child a phone? Well, it depends, right?
Yeah.
You know, and if they give them a phone, how should they manage it? Well, they should, because you're a parent, right? You're supposed to parent. But remember I said parents and leaders, they're absent. So there's no monitoring. And so what we're doing is we're putting ourselves in a very difficult position from just giving people a real sense of identity. And we've got, there are, I don't usually tell businesses this, but in the Christian space, there are 3 or 4 major spiritual giants that Gen Z are navigating. Do you want to hear what those are?
Yes.
Go for it.
Do you want to guess what they are?
The spiritual giants?
Yeah, there's 4 of them.
Identity?
Loneliness.
No. Yes, but no. You guys have been good so far. 1 out of 4 both times, 25%. That's my 1/4 inch, 6 1/4. Just saying.
6'0.25". But that's
So let me give it to you in order.
okay.
This is the most fatherless generation we've ever encountered.
Yeah.
And there's data.
Hey, no, that's not it.
There's data to prove it. On this,
I can laugh about it now.
it's
Anyways.
not only being without a father in the house. It's being without a mother in the house at times.
Yeah.
The stat is about fathers. The data point, you can read it. It's crazy. But it's also about moms not being in the house. It's about mom and dad being in the house and not parenting. But most of all, it's about God the Father. And if you don't have this father connection, it's impossible to have a foundation for anything. So the first thing is fatherlessness. The second thing is identity. Because if you don't have a father, God the Father, and or if you're growing up in that fatherless home, the version I've just explained to you, well, it's impossible to establish your identity. Because with you, I'm going to behave in a certain way. With you, I'm going to behave in a certain way. And there's a thing called always becoming. It's a philosophy that speaks about you can never step. It's actually a Greek philosopher whose name is Heraclitus, and he speaks about you can never step in the same river twice, meaning man is always changing and always becoming, right? And because if I step in the river, I step out. When I step in the river again, the water's moved, so I'm no longer stepping in the same part of the river.
Yeah.
Plus I'm 5-10 seconds older, and now I'm no longer the same person I was 5 seconds ago, right? And so that's the premise, right? Now you take that to the degree where we are today, where you're finding out who you are on social media, you're not determining who you are, and you're always trying to be a personality of some sorts. There's a restlessness that comes with that is really, really difficult. It's one thing to be stretched and challenged to grow. It's great. Don't ever settle. But it's another thing where you just never, ever, ever, ever arrive anywhere. And that's why goal setting is so critical, right? So that's the second one, has got to do with, so it's fatherlessness, and then it's got to do with identity. And the third one is self. So we have a generation that has grown up where self is the only thing that matters. Now, every person in every generation should have self-care. That's a given. But we've never seen it to almost entirely to the expense or at the exclusion of every other person around you. So it's about me, what I want, when I want it, how I want it. And then if you look at Netflix, YouTube, Uber, any of those things, that's what they cater to, on demand. When would you like it? How would you like it? When would you, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so self is everything.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 things, plus I don't have an identity. Now I think about, well, self. And you think about what COVID has done. COVID has amplified self.
Yeah.
People are impatient to stand in a line. They get the wrong coffee. This is unacceptable. Is it really? No, just get me another cup of coffee. Do you know what I mean? And so that self has become such a big deal that if anything outside of pleasing you and going the way you want it is broken, which is why there's no perseverance or problem solving, because it has to go my way or else I'm not interested. And then the third thing is fear, and it's a fear over faith journey, and it's not just about godly faith, right? It's not just about a spiritual thing. It's about faith in the government. It's about faith in your next door neighbor. It's faith that the person who's driving in front of you is not going to cut in front of you and kill you. And as I said to you, in terms of mean world syndrome, we're fear-based. And so you've got those 4 things are massive giants that if you don't recognize that you have to overcome, you just live with them in your life. And it's really, really complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that did come to me while like after we had talked about like the phones is the other side of the problem, which is the positives. And me, Brian, and Will Hart were talking about this, and we were talking about how we are able to share the gospel the fastest we have ever been able to before. Like it can happen in an instant. You can post something and have tons of people see it, and because of what you were saying about like we're cause driven. This is the first generation to have where after an encounter with God, 50% or more of our generation sees missions as a full-time profession. And I think it's exactly what you were saying, where like the passion, like we don't want to just work a job, where we want to have a cause and be a part of something. And I think that's what you're talking about, like with the blue people and the green people, and like trying to understand each other's like our motivations and how we like work. And so I think it's just like what I'm pulling from this is to understand the people who came before, but also in the future understand people who come behind you.
Yeah, that's a complicated one. And the reason why the blue people are struggling is because we've never seen such a seismic shift. Yeah. This has never happened. And so there's no precedent. They're still thinking that Gen Z are just teenagers going through a phase and that they'll snap out of it.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're not just teenagers. They're teenagers going through a phase, but that's not all there is to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right about the phone. The phone can be a really powerful tool in the right hands, but you've also unpacked how negative the phone can be in your life. So it takes you and your group of your sphere of influence to live well with your phone, to start to show. It's amazing. Whenever you do that detox and you lay that down, how life starts to flourish for you. It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
But it takes discipline to lay down your phone. And the difference between discipline and skill is massive. Discipline is waking up at 6 a.m. That's not a skill, right? You may not like it, but you can do it.
Yeah.
Laying down your phone is a skill. It's not a discipline. Sorry, it's a discipline. It's not a skill. You just have to do it. And people are only going to do it when they start to recognize what they're losing by being in it. And so that's really hard when it's a tool and you use it for a lot of things. It's like any medication that people are on.
Yeah.
The side effects, there's lots. So there's side effects to this as well. And so it doesn't mean everything about this is bad, because it's not. But you certainly do need to manage it.
Yeah. It's like you were talking about how these companies, they tailor to you, and that's how algorithms work. Yeah. Like they tailor to what you want and what you want to see, and like on social media, you only see stuff based on what you've seen before. Yeah. So it creates this loop, and it's about escaping that loop to. Yeah.
But in so many ways, that's good, right?
Yeah.
I've never been offered a Manchester United scarf.
Oh my gosh.
You know what?
Well, your phone might have heard that.
I hope it hears, and I hope that's the first thing you see when you open it.
But I get a lot of Liverpool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to know how your phones listen?
Yes.
Do you want me to tell you about that? La Liga.
La Liga?
Spanish League, Soccer League, right? It's massive, okay?
La Liga. It makes so much sense. It just connected.
Okay. And so what they did was, La Liga, there's an app that you can see all the games just like any of the leagues. And so what they did was they installed a function in their app that just before game day, before the game started, 5 minutes before the game started, what they would do is they would activate the microphone in your phone if you have the app. And what they would do is they would listen, but they would also geo-target and see where you were. They would geo-track you. And if you were in a pub, which is where a lot of people go and watch, right?
I would love to go to one.
Right? If you were in a pub, what they would do is they would check whether the pub has got a legal subscription to show the game. And if they didn't, they would fine the thing because they were pirating the stream, right? So that's how they used their app to find out who was legally watching the game and who wasn't. But so then it got really bad, right? Because they got taken to court. You're invading my privacy. How can you do that? And you know how they got away with it? They got away with it very easily because, well, I don't know if it was very easy, but the net result was this. Because they just took snippets, so they listened off, on, off, on, off, on.
Yeah.
And because they didn't store any of the data, they were legally allowed to do that, which is what your phone does. I'm looking at your phone. What your phone does is your phone has to keep listening to you because I'm going to at some point say, hey, Siri.
Yeah.
Hey, Google, whatever you say for the Google, right? So your phone has to listen to you. And so what marketers are able to... Thank you. I will. She's really good to me usually. She understands me. When I text, she never gets it wrong. Even in my accent, it's amazing.
That's
right.
Even with your accent.
Never gets it wrong.
I can't speak Spanish.
My grandma struggles with it. She speaks Siri all the time and it never gets it.
It takes these snippets and companies pay them. If there now is a snippet of something, it geo-targets you, finds a store, can recommend. And so at some point that's going to be really cool, but we have to find the balance between privacy and reality. And guess who's in control? Not us. Businesses. So, scary, right?
Yeah.
I have a statement and then a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start off with the statement because it leads into the question. So when you were talking about fatherlessness in our generation, I've had it in my life firsthand and I've dealt with it. I've also seen how it affects the kids around me and their development, and even my development. I can't even say development. That shows I am delayed. No,
development.
Development. And it's frightening. I've tried to convince myself. I remember convincing myself, like, oh, it's okay that I do not have my biological father to teach me certain things. And now I've realized, and I wonder if I did, what would be the difference? And you also go into that there's a leadership problem in general as well. So what advice would you give to leaders and parents, specifically Christian leaders and parents, on how to interact, teach, develop our generation?
Well, just in terms of fatherlessness, imagine if you didn't know Jesus, like what a wreck that would be.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so complicated, right? And even if you have a father, doesn't mean it's a good father.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't know if I'd prefer no father or a bad father. I don't know, right? I did have a father, and so I grew up with him. But, as far as just leaning in and coaching and being with this next generation, that's where I spend most of my time, is helping leaders think that through. And the journey is if you think about it, I'm going to give you, there's really two kinds of leadership. So there's a leadership called SOS, Sage on Stage. But you know what SOS stands for? Ship in Distress. It doesn't actually stand for those things.
No,
but
it doesn't
a
actually
ship,
stand for...
What?
No, it doesn't stand for anything.
It's the fatherless development. What can I say?
There's... What? What did you say?
She said it was the fatherless development.
I don't know what that is.
No, she didn't have a dad.
Well, I have a stepdad. He's wonderful.
Well, yeah. Tony's great.
Stepdad. But I was saying the reason I couldn't say it's a stupid joke. I was saying the reason I wasn't understanding and I thought it was serious.
It was just Morse code.
Yeah. So people have assigned all these words to it, but it was originally made as Morse code, where there was a ship in distress and they would go SOS, right? Mm-hmm. But the acronym I'm using it is for Sage on Stage. And Sage on Stage leadership is where mom or dad, a leader, says, this is my way, do it this way. And it's that kind of, there are some other words that go with it. It's a carpenter or it's a coach. So a carpenter says, this piece of wood, I'm going to make it into a table. It has no choice. It just shows up as a table and a coach. And I'll tell you the difference between coach and mentoring, because there's a massive difference.
Yeah.
The SOS mindset, or the SOS leader, is the kind of leadership that was around in the second industrial revolution. We're currently in the fourth industrial revolution.
Wow.
So what it was is we had a lot of people working in factories, and they had to work in a certain way. So it made sense. But our schools have been built on that model as well, where read this, learn this, regurgitate this. Okay, and it just doesn't bear any fruit.
No.
It doesn't.
So the other kind of leadership is called GPS, a guide positioned by the side. So this, even though I come here from Westchester every day, I put it in my GPS and it says, would you like me to take you to Praise Community Church? And I'm like, yes, please. And it says, oh, please go this way, please go that way. And so I don't always listen, but it takes me here, right? And so that is like a gardener or a mentor. So the only time, if you're going to lead, that SOS leadership works is in skill acquisition. In other words, if I'm going to teach you to kick a soccer ball or to play tennis or to write code, that's the only way it works. Or if there happens to be a fire and I say to you, follow me, we're going out of this door. And you're like, no, I'd like to go out of this window. I'm like, no, this is not a debate. This is how you do it. You're going out of this door, right? So that's SOS. That's the only time it works. The most effective way is a GPS, a guide positioned by the side, and that requires you to plant a seed, water it, and let it grow, and nurture it as it grows, right? And so you have to prune it, and you have to do all sorts of things to help it get where it wants to. Now, what does that look like in practice? That looks like in practice, it looks like parents recognizing that the home should be the most compelling place that your child could ever go. The home is the most boring place to go. Why? Because what happens when you go home? Do your homework, clean your room, and then when you finish doing all that, you go and look for mom and dad, and they're sitting on the couch watching TV. That's the most boring place in the world to be. Yeah. Considering you've just seen what's going on YouTube, even school's more fun than that. Yeah. Okay? So parents have to understand, if you don't create an environment that is compelling for your own children to be in, how are you ever going to guide them, lead them, encourage them? You will never be on the top of the food chain that has the ability to influence your own child.
Yeah.
Wow.
Frightening, right? So you actually have to have permission. You have to go through this thing called an 8-second filter and get permission to influence your own children. And if parents recognize that, they would treat their children potentially, they often do when they're really young, but when they get to the teenage years, they're kind of like, because they're busy, right?
Yeah.
We've got lives we've got to earn money, we've got to pay the bills, we've got to clean the car, we've got to mow the lawn. There's a lot that goes on. But there is a shift in priority when you recognize how important you are to your kids. So God's divine priority is this: time that you spend with him in the word and in prayer. Okay, this is a biblical principle. Second, your spouse, if you happen to be married. Third, your kids. Yeah. In that order.
Yeah.
And if you commit time to those three things as a parent or a leader, it's like a tithe. The time you commit there, God blesses on the other side of all the things you have to do like you can't imagine.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, guess what? The godly principle is not in place, and you wonder why you're struggling, and it feels like you're rowing upstream against the wind 24/7.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we justify, I've got to work to pay for my kids this and this and this. But when you allocate that time as a parent in the right order, the kingdom of heaven comes crashing in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you recognize that when you stand on a godly principle, everything is different.
Yeah.
But we don't, right? Because we take for granted our wife, our husband, our kids, because they'd be there when I get home. They know I love them. So I've just got to take care of this. But that's not a godly principle.
Yeah.
God's principle is really clear. Love Lord your God and your neighbor, right?
Yes.
And who's your neighbor? Your wife, your children, and then your neighbor.
That's so good.
It's also kind of incredibly sad at the same time that there's a struggle in that.
It is, but you know what? When you look around and you see families that are doing it, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
This is just like, wow. And the interesting thing is, it's just not hard. It just requires a change in perspective. You just need to understand, like, this is what matters.
It's the discipline you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
It is great.
It's
And I have seen it done effectively.
Good.
It is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
In your life?
No,
One day
but
when you're a mom?
maybe.
We
Maybe if I'm a
speak
mom.
Oh, good recovery.
Yeah, no. I said, well, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know what's so
Yeah.
cool is God's capacity and grace, even if we haven't grown up in that perfect environment, he still knows how to grow amazing humans,
Mm-hmm.
right?
yes.
Yeah.
So he's got us.
Mm-hmm.
He's got us. He won't waste what we've gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won't. And that's really important to recognize. Have any of you seen the pineapple story? I'll post the link. Well, it's a true thing.
No, I have never heard
have
of this. I feel bad that this is the second, the second show or movie you have mentioned, and we're all like,
Oh yeah, I'll share the link if you guys want to
the
share it.
pineapple
Yeah.
story.
This is a guy who's from Holland, so he's Dutch,
Pineapples, Michaela.
Mm-hmm.
okay? And he's a missionary to the headhunters in Papua New Guinea.
The headhunters.
They hunt other tribes, they cut off their heads and they shrink their heads. It's like a
Great.
thing. And they're cannibals, they eat them,
Wow.
okay?
How fun.
So him and his wife are missionaries to this. And it's a boring old man who stands there and gives his testimony, but his testimony will wreck you. It starts off about he wants to grow pineapples. And in Papua New Guinea, the soil is so bad, nothing grows.
Nothing grows.
Except weeds, right? And how he starts to grow pineapples and God blesses his pineapples. And then the people that he's looking after, they keep stealing his pineapples and he can't get to eat any pineapples. And it's like now he's growing pineapples and he can't eat them.
Yeah.
And he goes through the story and he shows you like how amazing God is, that God not only knows how to grow amazing pineapples, but when your heart and your motive is in the right place, you'll have more pineapples than you can eat.
Yeah.
And it took him as a missionary. You got to hear his story. It's worth seeing because it's funny, but it's also deep and sad. And I've watched it, 20 times, and each time it wrecks me more because it's such a deep story.
You'll have to send me the link and I'll attach it to the video.
Will do.
So they can check it out.
What can you watch it on?
The World Wide Web.
That's a good point.
YouTube.
World Wide Web.
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube.
All the old people used to say, they used to call it the World Wide Web. That's why I joke.
Yeah.
And people are like,
Is that what the
did you
www
Did you
Yes.
find that on the World Wide Web?
Did you not know that?
You see, I live in the internet realm. I can't say I know much about it.
Well, I don't know. I'm the youngest. I grew up with older siblings, so I mean I've learned stuff from them. So I don't know.
I'm the oldest.
I know you are.
God bless my siblings.
So
That is not the realm I can.
there's
educate
a
them.
video of my oldest sister. I'm not gonna put it up, but she watches this, so she's not gonna be happy that I tell this story. But she when she was a kid and she was like upset about something at my dad, and my dad was just messing with her, and he starts recording, and she's like all upset, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna post this on Facebook, and she's like, old people don't post things on Facebook. And he was like 30.
Oh, how the world has changed, because now old people post everything
on Facebook.
Everything.
So it's pretty funny.
Old people on the internet are hilarious.
Yeah. So,
It's just funny.
but we are
Wow.
an hour in. So I think that's a good thing to leave off on. Thank you for.
I still
for
have
coming,
so
Steve.
many questions. Could we possibly do a part 2?
We might have to do a part 2.
I know how I'm going to be dressing.
Yeah. If we
Are you actually gonna do it?
if we hit what are we at right now on YouTube?
600.
If we hit 1,000 subscribers by the next time we have Steve on, I will wear a Liverpool shirt.
Come on. I will make sure you get those subscribers.
you're gonna make sure.
I'm going to reach out to the Liverpool clan.
It's a
Oh my
double-ended
gosh.
sword.
That's gonna be painful. Could I wear that then?
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. I'll wear a jersey.
I got this from the greatest
Yay.
coach I ever had. He's the reason I'm a Man U fan. So
Oh my
he
gosh.
corrupted me. But thank you for coming on, Steve.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it has
guys.
been wonderful. It's been very insightful. I've gained a lot of knowledge on myself, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we usually close out in prayer. Would you like to close out for us?
Yes. Do you want to rock, paper, scissors me?
We did a rock, paper, scissors before this episode, and I won.
Do you know that in Africa, do you know how you do rock, paper, scissors?
How?
It's a bit offensive, apparently. I don't know. You go ching, chong, cha. Is that offensive?
That's how they do. I think
I don't know. I mean, I don't
that's how you do it.
Yeah.
I guess in the American terms, because that's usually used as like to describe in like a slur to certain East Asian countries. Like when you say those words, but that's how you play it.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Isn't it?
I did research on South Africa because there's like this big South African artist out right now. And this is the most random thing to think about, but the way race is classified there is really interesting in comparison how race is classified over here. But
We have 14 official languages.
that's insane.
Yeah.
Official.
Yeah. So you can imagine filling out a form.
Yeah.
What languages do you speak?
I speak English and Afrikaans. So 2.
Wow.
I'd be happy to pray.
Nice.
In English? Afrikaans.
In English.
Okay.
Father, we just thank you for this time. And, well, none of us are what the world calls us because we're your children. We just thank you that you're always challenging us to look at who we are. You're always challenging us to be who you've called us to be. Above all, we just want to thank you that we're not on this journey or in this journey alone, but that every step you're with us. And we want to just celebrate this. I thank you that anybody who's listening, that their hearts would be full of joy and peace, and there would be a smile on their face, knowing that it doesn't matter who we are, but that you have a plan and a purpose for our lives. And we're excited about that. Thank you that this was such a relaxed and upbeat time. And Father, I know that's how you design it. And we just bless you, and we bless this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Once again, thank you so much for doing this. This was exciting. And you're funny. And you're funny. And you have an amazing
You have
physique.
the physique.
You tell Adam I'm funny because we've got a competition going, and he thinks he's
What?
funnier than me.
He is pretty funny.
No.
Wait. So is there now going to be
owning.
a comedy show? Are you guys going to challenge each other to do comedy?
Oh,
One round we do tennis, the other round we do comedy.
yeah, one-liner jokes to see who can get the. Okay. And I'll be interested to see if these guys
beef
step
is
up and
crazy.
own this challenge.
You know, we got to text them. It has to be immediate. They have to be
Yeah.
informed.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
guys.
Thank you.
Audience.
Follow us. Follow us. If you're watching this and you haven't followed us, like that's really crazy.
Come on, man. Subscribe.
Like especially if you've watched like almost all these episodes, like that's insane to think about.
Yeah,
So just subscribe. Just subscribe. Hit that like and subscribe button, y'all.
only 8% of y'all are subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so I could not wear a Liverpool shirt.
Oh.
That was a tack. That was
Be sure to follow us at Faith Like Birds on our YouTube channel, on our Spotify, on our Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Facebook, and MySpace.
We
Which
say that.
isn't a social media site anymore, at least
Nope.
not in the same way it used to be. Have a good night, y'all.
Night.